I did mope around for a few months, good few months. The whole family did. Nobody really knew how to deal with it all because it's the loss of 3 brothers.
Throughout an extraordinary career spanning over 6 decades, Barry Gibb has left an indelible mark on the music world. However, behind the spotlight, his life has been far from easy. From nearly experiencing abuse as a child to navigating strained relationships with his brothers before their passing, Gibb's journey has been filled with challenges. Additionally, rumors have circulated about his close relationship with Barbara Streisand. Now, at 77 years old, Gibb's son has finally admitted what we all suspected. The Bee Gees' last surviving member fell out with his brothers before they died. Barry Gibb gazes out from my laptop screen, the brim of his black Stetson hat framing his face. He's situated in Miami, his home since 1974. A pivotal move spurred by Eric Clapton's suggestion during the Bee Gees' career downturn. Clapton's advice led the trio to relocate to the very house immortalized in the title of his album, 461 Ocean Boulevard. Despite maintaining a residence in England, Gibb found solace in Miami, finding echoes of his Australian upbringing in its ambiance. Now residing in a waterfront mansion within an exclusive country club, Gibb's current lifestyle stands in stark contrast to the financial struggles his family faced in Australia, a chapter of his life we'll delve into shortly. The staggering success of the Bee Gees, estimated to have sold between 120 million to 220 million records, paved the way for this opulent lifestyle. The late Robin Gibb once owned a neighboring property, attracting attention even from high-profile figures like former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, who vacationed there. Gibb's family life flourishes in this picturesque setting, surrounded by what he fondly refers to as multiple Gibbs. With 5 children and 7 grandchildren, the household is brimming with warmth and familial bonds, a haven particularly cherished during the challenges posed by the pandemic. Despite the allure of their luxurious surroundings, Gibb emphasizes their commitment to responsible behavior amidst the rampant spread of COVID-19 in Miami. Reflecting on his past, Gibb shares insights into his personal struggles and the guiding influence of his late wife, Linda. Despite the temptations that fame often brings, Gibb credits Linda for steering him away from the pitfalls of substance abuse. While his brothers navigated their own battles, Gibb acknowledges his fortune in having Linda's unwavering support and guidance. Barry Gibb appears to be in remarkably good spirits for someone who recently marked his 74th birthday and celebrated his golden wedding anniversary on the very same day. Reflecting on his enduring marriage to Linda, a former Miss Edinburgh whom he met backstage at Top of the Pops in the late 1960s, Gibb expresses gratitude for their rare 50-year union. Linda, it seems, is no ordinary partner. Her strength and resolve have been instrumental in helping Gibb navigate the pitfalls of fame that ensnared his brothers. Indeed, Gibb's siblings faced their own struggles with the trappings of stardom. Morris battled with alcoholism, seeking solace in scotch and coke until his eventual entry into rehab in the early 1990s. Robin grappled with amphetamine use, while Andy, propelled to solo success by his brother's fame, fell victim to a cocaine addiction that claimed his life at the tender age of 30. Amidst the turmoil that surrounded his brothers, Gibb credits Linda for being a steadfast beacon of sobriety and support. Her unwavering stance against substance abuse created a sanctuary within their home, where drugs were unwelcome and swiftly disposed of. Gibb recognizes the stroke of fortune that spared him from succumbing to the same vices that ensnared his siblings, attributing his resilience to Linda's firm guidance. Comparing Gibb's demeanor now to our last encounter 7 years ago reveals a marked shift. Back then, he grappled with the profound loss of Robin, who succumbed to cancer barely a year prior. The pain of Robin's passing lingered, compounded by the regret of unresolved conflicts and unspoken words. The sudden loss of Maurice in 2003, followed by Andy's tragic demise, further added to Gibb's burden of grief. Yet today, there's a sense of acceptance and resignation as he reflects on the past, acknowledging the inevitability of loss and the imperative to carry on. Discussing the new feature-length documentary about the Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart?, Gibb reflects on the band's tumultuous journey with a sense of equanimity. Barry Gibb is brimming with excitement about his latest project, an album that sees him revisiting the Bee Gees' timeless hits alongside an impressive lineup of country stars from Dolly Parton to Alison Krauss. Describing the recording sessions as the thrill of a lifetime, Gibb's enthusiasm is palpable, though there's a hint of self-doubt lurking beneath the surface. It took some persuasion from his son Stephen to convince him that collaborating with such esteemed artists would be of interest to anyone, a testament, perhaps, to the lingering insecurities stemming from the Bee Gees' turbulent past. The meteoric success of the film Saturday Night Fever catapulted the Bee Gees to unparalleled fame, yet Gibb remains haunted by the backlash they faced during the disco era. The days of ridicule for their appearance and distinctive falsetto vocals are long gone, replaced by a newfound appreciation for their songwriting prowess. The documentary, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart?, pays homage to the Gibbs' enduring musical legacy, featuring contributions from luminaries like Chris Martin, Noel Gallagher, Mark Ronson, and Justin Timberlake. Despite the accolades and adoration, Gibb still carries a sense of being an outsider. His surprise at the overwhelmingly positive reception during his performance at Glastonbury speaks volumes, underscoring his humility and disbelief that their songs continue to resonate with audiences decades later. However, the Bee Gees' journey to stardom was far from conventional. Hailing from humble beginnings in Australia, the trio began their musical odyssey performing at a Brisbane speedway, where they were discovered by a local DJ. From there, they became the family's primary breadwinners, earning a modest income from their performances, a necessity for a family struggling to make ends meet. Gibb reflects on their early years with a mixture of nostalgia and pragmatism, recalling the numerous houses they rented as their father struggled to keep up with the rent payments, often resulting in late-night moves with suitcases in tow. Despite the financial hardships, the Gibb brothers found solace and joy in their shared passion for music. Their harmonious blend of voices and unwavering dedication propelled them forward, transcending the constraints of their circumstances and laying the foundation for a remarkable musical legacy. By 1965, they were donning Beatle boots and penning their own tunes, but success remained elusive. In a rather bold move, the brothers decided that the entire family needed to relocate back to England to give their career a boost. Their timing couldn't have been more ironic. Just as they departed Australia, their latest single, Spicks and Specks, soared to the top of the charts, prompting their record label to dispatch a boat in pursuit. However, the Gibbs opted for seclusion, hiding in their cabin and refusing to emerge. Upon their arrival in the UK, they encountered another band, dubbed Absolute Beatles Lookalikes, waiting on Southampton Dock. While it might have seemed like a fortuitous sign, the encounter didn't quite unfold as expected. Barry recalls the surreal moment. We descended the steps, and there in the fog stood this group. Heaven knows what they were doing there. He chuckles at the memory. And they said, "Go back to Australia. There's nothing happening here. They won't sign groups anymore." Ironically, this dismal prediction ranks among the most misguided in pop history. Within a month, the Bee Gees secured a management contract with Brian Epstein's renowned company NEMS, and within 2 months, their single New York Mining Disaster 1941 became a transatlantic sensation. From struggling to gain traction in Australia, the Gibbs suddenly emerged as exceptionally gifted songwriters. Despite their youth, they effortlessly churned out timeless ballads like To Love Somebody and Words, alongside quirky, offbeat tunes such as Barker of the UFO and Mrs. Gillespie's Refrigerator, a blend that captivated audiences with its peculiar charm. Their success was undeniable. In footage featured in the documentary, Maurice Gibb claims to have owned 6 Rolls-Royces by the age of 21, a statement that elicits an eye roll from Barry. "Maurice," he remarks with the air of an older brother accustomed to Maurice's penchant for exaggeration, "was the master of embellishment. It was always his way." Maurice only had 1 Rolls-Royce, but he enjoyed amplifying every aspect of his life. However, Gibb acknowledges the overwhelming magnitude and rapid onset of the Bee Gees' fame, recognizing that coping with such immense pressure would have been challenging for anyone. "There's fame, and then there's ultra fame, and it can be overwhelming," he reflects. "You lose sight of reality. You find yourself in the midst of a whirlwind without even realizing it. You're unsure of what tomorrow holds. You can't predict whether your next recording will be a hit or a miss. And we were just kids," he adds, emphasizing their youth at the time. The Bee Gees' internal dynamics also faced strain, particularly between Barry and Robin. With no clearly defined roles within the band, disputes arose over who should assume the role of frontman. "Our pre-fame days were the best," Gibb recalls wistfully. "There was no competition. It didn't matter who took the lead. When we scored our first #1 with Massachusetts, Robin took the lead, and I think he felt entitled to it thereafter. But that wasn't how we operated," he asserts, adopting the stance of the older brother once more. "We all contributed songs, and whoever brought the idea to the table typically took the lead." The Bee Gees disbanded in 1969, only to reunite a few years later, though their celebrity gradually waned. By 1972, they were uncertain about their audience, releasing an album titled "To Whom It May Concern," in a bid to regain their footing. Their move to the United States at their record label's suggestion marked a turning point, leading to a remarkable resurgence. With hits like "Jive Talking" and "You Should Be Dancing," and their monumental contribution to the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, the Bee Gees experienced unparalleled success, dominating the charts and airwaves with one #1 hit after another. Gibb recalls a pivotal moment when they realized the extent of their fame. Their involvement in an ill-fated attempt to create a film musical based on the Beatles' album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Despite their efforts to back out of the project, they found themselves caught up in the whirlwind of success as the album Saturday Night Fever gained unprecedented popularity. Gibb vividly remembers the sudden surge in album sales, with Fever moving 1 million copies a week. The measure of their newfound success was starkly evident when they went from sharing one Winnebago to each having their own within a matter of weeks. However, their meteoric rise was met with a swift decline, fueled by the backlash against disco and radio stations' weariness with constant Bee Gees airplay. Yet a lifeline emerged when Barbara Streisand invited them to collaborate on her next album, a proposition that left Gibb feeling both anxious and hopeful. Their collaboration resulted in the immensely successful album Guilty in 1980, which sold 15 million copies and paved the way for their career as sought-after songwriters in the 1980s. Ironically, despite the radio's reluctance to play Bee Gees tracks, their compositions for other artists, such as Dionne Warwick's Heartbreaker, Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton's Islands in the Stream, and Diana Ross's Chain Reaction, bore the unmistakable imprint of the Bee Gees sound. Amidst their burgeoning success, another unexpected visitor entered their lives: Michael Jackson. Gibb found himself playing host to the pop icon, but the demands of parenthood and daily routines soon clashed with Jackson's nocturnal habits. Eventually, Gibb had to draw the line, gently urging Jackson to find his way elsewhere in the mornings. As Gibb humorously recalls, "Michael, wherever you're headed, it's time to hit the road." They even had a chance to collaborate with Michael Jackson, although the fruits of their labor were never officially released. "We spent days lounging around in my living room, just enjoying ourselves, not really focusing on songwriting," Gibb recalls. "We did come up with one song, All in My Name, But we weren't really serious about it. I think Michael was seeking refuge from the legal turmoil he was facing. He sought solace with people he could connect with, as he didn't know who his true friends were. However, he began frequenting the house more and more, and I, being 12 years older than him, had to stick to my routine of taking my kids to school. Eventually, I had to draw the line and politely ask Michael to find his own way in the mornings. "So," Gibb adds with a chuckle, "I had to kindly request Michael Jackson to vacate my house because I couldn't get anything else done." Maurice's passing in 2003 marked the end of the Bee Gees era. While Robin was eager to carry on, Gibb hesitated, realizing that continuing without Maurice wouldn't feel right. "We couldn't just keep insisting that we were the Bee Gees without Mo," Gibb reflects, recounting another rift between the brothers. Robin was adamant about keeping the Bee Gees alive. I believe he might have sensed his illness a couple of years before it became critical. Spiritually, he didn't want to succumb to illness. He never wanted to be seen as someone with a health issue, so he kept it hidden, even from me. When I finally learned the truth, I understood his urgency to keep going, no matter what. Initially, Gibb contemplated retiring after Robin's passing. However, he soon realized that, as the sole surviving Bee Gee, it fell upon him to preserve their musical legacy. "I feel a responsibility to ensure that the music endures, and I'm dedicated to that mission," Gibb asserts. Thus, he embarked on tours and resumed creating albums. Over time, his perspective on the Bee Gees' impact evolved. Before our conversation concludes, he shares a heartwarming anecdote about his daughter hearing "Stayin' Alive" on the radio during a drive. "They cranked up the volume and rolled down the windows, and soon people on the street started dancing," he recounts with pride. "It's inexplicable how it happened, but it's clear that our music has permeated the culture to such an extent that it won't be forgotten." How Steve McQueen nearly stole Barry Gibb's wife. Barry Gibb stands as the sole surviving member of the Bee Gees, but he doesn't need to flip through family photo albums to recall his brothers. Twins Maurice, who passed away in 2003 due to complications after stomach surgery, and Robin, who lost his battle with cancer in 2012, as well as their youngest sibling, Andy, who tragically died at 30 in 1988 after struggling with drug abuse. "I've had encounters with Robin since his passing," Barry shares with the Post. "You might call it an apparition, but I've seen him walk from the front door to the lounge in my house. It happened late at night. He was wearing a blue jacket, and I knew it was him. There was no fear, rather it brought me comfort. Both Robin and Maurice still feel present." Despite the title, In the Now, Barry's latest solo album carries more than a few echoes of the past. It marks his return to recording, the first since the Bee Gees' final album, This Is Where I Came In 2001, and 32 years since his last solo effort, Now Voyager. After grappling with the loss of his brothers, along with his mother's passing in August, Barry is back in the music scene. "I've been making music for as long as I can remember, so what else could I do?" Indeed, Barry, now 70, began his musical journey with his siblings in the mid-1950s when they formed the skiffle rock and roll trio, the Rattlesnakes, in England. At just 10 years old, Barry was the eldest among them. The group later evolved into the Bee Gees, achieving success with Beatles-inspired hits like To Love Somebody and Words. However, with success came heightened sibling rivalry. "We used to chase after each other's girlfriends," Barry recalls with a chuckle. "I remember one incident during a live BBC broadcast in 1967. There was this beautiful girl from Australia, and Robin had his eye on her. I didn't know that at the time. I walked up to her, and suddenly Robin turns to me and says, 'Barry, has that boil on your ass gone away yet?' That was his way of telling me to back off." During the early 1970s, the Bee Gees experienced a slump in their career until their manager, and by then, film producer Robert Stigwood, suggested they work on a soundtrack for a movie about a young Brooklynite with a mundane weekday job at a paint shop, but who lets loose on the dance floor in the clubs of Bay Ridge over the weekends. Initially skeptical about the film's potential, the trio agreed to the project, resulting in Saturday Night Fever and its immensely successful soundtrack, which sold 40 million copies, catalyzing a cultural revolution. That period was the most vibrant time I can recall. Barry reflects on the impact of Saturday Night Fever and the subsequent disco craze. I don't keep in touch with John Travolta that often, but on my birthday this year, he sent me a video message. In the video, Travolta mimicked Stigwood, recounting how he was going to propel the actor to stardom. While it did indeed make him famous, I think John feels somewhat like me in that the success of Fever left a mark on him, Barry adds, reflecting on the impact of the film on Travolta's career. The lingering hangover from Saturday Night Fever still persists on Sunday mornings, and the image of the Gibbs as hairy-chested, medallion-wearing throwbacks remains entrenched. For years, Jimmy Fallon even ran an ongoing sketch on Saturday Night Live called The Barry Gibb Talk Show, poking fun at Barry's iconic falsetto. "Everyone has to go through the hazing," Barry remarks. "It's just part of the game. You can't buy your way out of that." Amidst the losses in his family, Barry is grateful for something that has endured, his 54-year marriage to Linda, with whom he shares 5 children. The couple tied the knot in 1970, and Barry proudly states that he's remained faithful despite the temptations. "I do recall Australian tennis star Yvonne Goolagong trying to persuade me to go out with her about 25 years ago. She asked if she could come over." Barry reveals that Linda also faced her share of temptations. "Once, when we were at the record plant in Los Angeles, Steve McQueen attempted to whisk Linda away on the back of his motorbike. She's a stunning woman and had just as many opportunities as me." Did Barry Gibb have a relationship with Barbara Streisand? Barry Gibb had a working relationship with Barbara Streisand. He wrote and co-produced her most successful album, Guilty, in 1980. There are rumors the two had an affair, but both have denied it. There are rumors that Barry is intimate with Barbara Streisand, but his son insists he is only loyal to his wife and his son's mother. Despite his successful career, his life is far more tragic than we might imagine. Barry Gibb was almost abused as a child. Barry Gibb, the iconic singer of the Bee Gees, recently opened up about a harrowing experience from his childhood, revealing that he was a victim of abuse. The revelation came as Gibb recounted a disturbing incident that occurred when he was just 4 years old. During his interview with Radio Times, he bravely shared the deeply personal story, shedding light on a dark chapter of his past. Growing up on the Isle of Man, Gibb recounted how a man attempted to molest him at a tender age. Reflecting on the traumatic event, Gibb admitted that he had kept it a secret for years, acknowledging the difficulty of discussing such unsettling details. He confessed that even now, discussing the incident felt unpalatable, underscoring the profound impact it had on him. Despite the gravity of the situation, Gibb revealed that the man never physically touched him. However, he alluded to other things that occurred, hinting at the psychological and emotional toll of the encounter. Moreover, Gibb disclosed that he was aware of other children who had also endured similar abuse, painting a distressing picture of the environment he grew up in. In a moment of raw honesty, Gibb questioned the timing of his disclosure, grappling with the decision to share his story publicly. He expressed a mix of vulnerability and determination as he deliberated over whether to reveal such a painful aspect of his past. Ultimately, he felt compelled to speak out, recognizing the importance of shedding light on the prevalence of abuse and the need for survivors to find their voices. Barry Gibb's son Stephen reveals he ate from bins after cocaine addiction left him homeless. The 49-year-old rock musician has opened up about his struggles with addiction to cocaine on his podcast, Addiction Talks. Sharing his experiences with listeners, he revealed, "The first time I drank, I was probably 14, and I downed an entire bottle of Jack Daniels and blacked out." Reflecting on his darkest moments, he recounted, "After losing my gig with my band, I found myself homeless. Studios often discard so much good food, and I remember scavenging from the dumpster at the record plant, praying nobody would see me. I distinctly recall thinking, this sucks. I was living out of my van or wherever I could find shelter. If someone let me crash on their couch, I considered myself fortunate, he added. He expressed astonishment at the stark contrast in his life, saying, "What was mind-blowing for me was the old saying, 'From Park Avenue to Park Bench.'" He went on to describe how he would often turn to stimulants like cocaine or methamphetamine, noting, "The simplest, most mundane things would suddenly ignite a fire of pure terror." However, he eventually pulled himself out of the depths of addiction and joined his iconic father on tour, showcasing his guitar skills. The Bee Gees' immense success saw them sell over 220 million records worldwide, solidifying their status as one of the most successful musical groups in history. With his global acclaim, Barry Gibb has amassed a considerable fortune and is estimated to be worth $71 million.